Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravella, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is our very own Sarah Snyder. She is a senior medical affairs recruiter on my team here at the Carolyn Group, and she shares 13 common interview mistakes that can keep you from landing your next job. It's an awesome conversation. Anyone that's interviewing, you absolutely need to listen to this, or if you have an interview coming up, you should absolutely follow or connect with Sarah on LinkedIn if you haven't already. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube. All of our videos go up on YouTube for this podcast. And we also do something called MSL Talk Live, which is the first Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And it's a live discussion, just like this podcast. And it's on LinkedIn Live. So check that out. You have to follow me on LinkedIn to see the announcements. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for sharing these episodes. Hey, Sarah, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. So guys, it's been, let's see, a year since Sarah joined us. So she's been on my team as a recruiter. She is absolutely crushing it. I mean, crushing it. And I know a lot of you guys may have either connected with her or follow her content. If you don't, you absolutely positively should. From this point forward, follow Sarah, connect with her on LinkedIn, and just check out her content's amazing. So wanted to have her to come back on the show and talk about what she's experienced over the course of the past year, specifically as it relates to interviews and what are some of the common mistakes that she makes. Before we get into it, I want to do a quick shout out to our friends in Italy. So we actually broke into the top 10 in rankings this week in Italy. So you guys know that I am half Italian and I'm half Portuguese. I'm actually more Italian than Portuguese. I think I'm like 56% Italian. So shout out to all of my friends and family and everyone that is Italian that listens and everybody who's Italian in general. But so let's get into it. Sarah, why don't we start with an introduction just so that anybody that may not know who you are, you can just give them a background.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And like you said, I have been part of your crew for just over a year, and I've loved every minute of it. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to work with all the people that are out there listening that I have gotten to speak with, and then, those of you that I'll get to work with in the future. As far as an intro, I've been on Tom's team for a year, but before that, I worked at Medical Affairs in a variety of roles, small biotechs, all the way up to big pharma for over 20 years. And I'm a pharmacist by training. So that's me.
Well, and guys, like Sarah's really super humble, but like she was a freaking kick-ass MSL for 20 years. So let's be fair about that part of it. So she knows the MSL space inside and out. And now that you're a recruiter, let's talk about the things that you're noticing out there. And when it comes to interviews, like what's the number one thing? No, what's one thing that pops up in your mind as far as a mistake that you see people make? So where do we start?
Yeah. And before I even say what the mistake is, I just want to share that I made these and I made them all the time, not all the time because I didn't interview very frequently, but that's the point. If you're out there working, you're not interviewing very often, right? It was every maybe 3-4 years that I had the opportunity to do that. And so I made these mistakes that I see now people making every day. So when you suggested this topic, I'm like, this is perfect because it now kind of comes naturally to me that I see them. But before it was just, so the point of that story is don't feel bad if you've done some of these, because these are true candidate stories that I'm going to share. But I did them, almost everybody is making mistakes, so it's just part of the process and it's learning from them. So the number one thing, and you and I talk about this on social media, on LinkedIn all the time, is enthusiasm. So it's literally when I call someone or when they get on the Zoom call with their prospective interview, hiring manager, they don't show enough enthusiasm. And I'm talking when they pick up the phone. I'll call, and if you answer the phone and you're muffled, hello, it just sets the tone right there. And you don't even think about it because we all answer the phone, just kind of hello. But if you know that a recruiter or hiring manager is calling, get yourself standing up it sounds silly, but stand up for the phone call and, answer like you would in person with some enthusiasm. Hi, this is Sarah. Hi, this is Tom, and show that you're ready for that call. And then, taking that, I think the other thing I struggle with is keeping that enthusiasm all the way to the end. So your goodbye should be as strong as your hello, and obviously maintain that throughout. But it's tough. It's hard to keep that, especially in a virtual world or on the phone. But that's the number one thing I see.
Totally agree. And I've said this a bunch of times on this podcast. I say this almost like literally, I feel like I say it every day, but when all things are equal in a job search, the position is always given to the person who shows they want it the most. If you answer let's just go back to that phone thing. If you go onto an interview, or if you're answering the phone for a phone screen, or even if it's just to talk to a recruiter, and it sounds like you're not sure who's calling you, or you're not prepared, or you're just not excited to hear from that person, it sets a negative tone. It shows lack of interest. The thing that is important about this, guys, is you can control this. This is in your control. There are going to be certain things that you can't control. You can certainly control the energy, the sound in your voice, your tone, the amount of excitement and desire for that position is all on you. So I would second this. I think it's definitely the number one. Don't make this mistake. Make sure that you get yourself ready, excited, and upbeat for every interaction.
100%.
What's number two? Where do we go now?
Number two is treating the virtual interview as important as it was in person. And I'll say, I admit, I never interviewed in the virtual environment. Mine were always the ones where you had a stacked day, you had your presentation, you had your suits, you were ready to go, everything was buttoned up. It's not that way anymore. So we have to change and we have to evolve. And we have to treat the virtual setting as important as we would. And I know you've said that on the podcast before, but I can't. We have people every day that lose out on this because they show up in, a college, a shirt, just like they're just, hanging out. You've got to come to the interview like you would in person. And it is unfortunate. And I get it when it's like a 5-day stretch and maybe just wear your suit cut, but you know what? You're probably going to feel a lot better and you're going to be ready too. So I get it. We're all super busy. The hiring manager is very busy too. And these are split up. And sometimes you've got to do them at a hotel, or you're trying to, we have people that are doing them from the car. And that virtual world, the car is good because it's quiet. You don't have to worry about like the dogs or the kids. But I will say people are using that, like the blurred background. And Tom's doing it right now. And actually yours is really good on Zoom. On Teams, we have to be careful with it because your head bops around when you talk and it can be really distracting. So just be careful with that. If at all possible on Teams, try not to use one of their blurred backgrounds. But like I said, if it's Zoom, Tom looks good right now and he's doing it. So I think we can safely say that is a win. But just overall, like Tom already said, control the controllables. And I had that in my notes. And this is something you can totally control. Dress for the job that you want. Get the background noise, cut it out, and then watch what your virtual or your real background is. So
1000%. And yeah, shout out to my friends in South Florida. So I am on location. I'm in South Florida right now. So, and I'm in a new place. So I just bought this new place and I'm trying to figure out like, where am I going to do my podcast from? So anyway, yeah, blurred background. But here's the thing, guys, like, just like Sarah said, this is something that I think it's such an easy fix, but if you don't take it seriously, it could work against you and you won't even realize it. You probably won't even know. But one of the things that drives hiring managers crazy is when they're prepared for an interview and they're handling it like it's live, but the other person is not taking it seriously enough. So for example, we had a hiring manager say to us, we're not going to move forward with that candidate. They showed up for the interview like they just got done mowing the lawn. And they could see you. They see how you're dressed. They're judging you, but you're literally literally going to be judged on how you show up. And look, and like Sarah said, pants are optional. Like, make sure that you look professional. Every once in a while, someone's going to say, stand up. We want to see if you're dressed, completely. Like, so I'm joking, but still, like, just be your best. Take the time to stage your background, test the technology so that you know that everything's going to be working. And at least that part of it that, again, that's in your control, you won't have to worry about. So
100%.
Let's go to number 3. What's number 3?
Yeah. Number 3 is overdoing on the elevator pitch. And, we used to practice this when I was in MSL, and we would say, like, how do you describe yourself to a doctor? So this is absolutely not a waste of your time to really button up your elevator pitch, because it's something that once you land your role, whether it's an MSL or another medical affairs role or whatever you're looking to do, you're going to do this each and every day. You're going to be introducing yourself. And if you're this long-winded on and on about your details that just aren't relevant to the person, to the job, to whatever project you're working on, like, you're just going to be lost. People are too busy right now and just receive too many incoming things to process. And so a lot of times if I call someone and they start, going on and on and on, sometimes it'll last like 2 minutes plus, and they'll still be telling me about their education and, what they, maybe something that they did in the lab or, as a pharmacist, when they worked at this clinical pharmacy way back, 10 years ago. We really want to know what you've done that is going to apply to the role and what you're going to bring. So practice it. And I would try to get it 90 seconds. I know you've got some tools on this too, Tom, so I'll let you lead to those, but get and this goes to every answer in the interview process too, but 1 minute, 90 seconds, done. We don't want these 2 minute plus long drawn out things. You lost people after a minute.
I think that this could be a deal breaker. This is a first impression sort of thing. And it's not just on the interview that you have to consider this, but like later on when you become an MSL, or if you are an MSL and you're networking at a conference, or let's say you're networking with somebody to get a job and they ask you, or you have a mentor. This applies to all different areas within your career. You don't want to bore that person. You don't want to make that person feel like, oh my God, this person can't communicate.
Right.
This is another controllable. This is something that if you take, and I would say, Sarah, I would even probably say 60 seconds. Try to keep this to at a maximum, even if you can get it down to 30 to 45 seconds. It's real simple. You want to just practice answering that question. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then you're going to go into a very succinct explanation of who you are, what makes you special, why they should consider you for the position. And don't forget to bring a level of excitement and enthusiasm and tell them what you want at the same time. And again, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but what I will say is keep it brief, keep it specific, show your value. What's your value proposition? What's your scientific value proposition? Why would that person want to hire you? Why would that person want to connect with you? Why would that person want to help you? Like, you want to use that 45 seconds as a way of really grabbing that person. So think about that as you put this together.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you'll agree with me. Bridget and I were at the MSL conference or society conference, and we were working the booth. And we both agreed, we could tell, like, after that first 30 seconds, we're like, they'd be a really good MSL. And I mean, obviously you've got to go through the entire interview process and whatnot, but I guarantee you, usually after like a minute on the phone with someone, I can tell, like, oh, this is a candidate that I'm going to want to work with, and is going to shine in the interview process. You can just tell in that very first thing. So hiring managers can definitely tell that too.
For sure. And if you are an MSL and someone says, hey, tell me a little about yourself. Well, I'm an MSL with this organization. I specialize in this therapeutic area. I live in this, blah, blah, blah. And, what I love most about what I do is this. And, and just that alone with an energy of excitement and enthusiasm is just, it'll separate you from everybody else. So, all right, let's move on to the next one. So what do we have next?
Okay, I love this one, but it's the people that emphasize that they can do anything usually lose. So, and it sounds, like, geez, you get on it and you're showing this enthusiasm and you really want to, like, I am capable of doing anything that you have for me. I can cover any therapeutic area. I can do any projects. It's just too much. So especially I'm going to, tell the pharmacists out there, the ones that are clinical pharmacists that say, like, I can cover every therapeutic area. You're really, until you get some medical affairs experience, once you get that, then you need to bridge whatever therapeutic area you're in to what you want to be in. But if it's that whole what is it, jack of all trades, master of none. It's true. And so really buttoning down, like, what are your strengths, honing in on those, and then playing those up, whether it's therapeutic area, whether it's you're really good at making PowerPoint slides, whatever it is, make a list of the top 7 things, and those are your things. We don't need that list to be, 25 and just for you to sound so excited. I just want this job so bad. I'm going to do anything. No, it just makes the person kind of like just almost too excited, and that's not the kind of enthusiasm we want. So really specific examples of what you've done, how that applies to the job and your strengths, I think, versus just your excitement to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have this conversation all the time with people that are like, they have trouble narrowing down their value proposition. But if you don't do that, then you're never going to come off as an expert to anyone. So this idea of overemphasizing your ability to do anything will backfire. You have to show your value and the value proposition. I keep saying that word. Your value proposition. What are you an expert at? What are you really good at? What is going to attract the attention of somebody else so that they're going to say, I want to hire this person because they can do this, 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 and this. Now, here's a tip. When you're interviewing for a specific position, read the language in the job description and see what they want and tailor your approach and your value proposition based upon what is in that job description, what they're saying they're looking for. Because the more of a bullseye that you can hit and show them, the more likely they are to want to consider you for the position. But if you can't check the boxes of what they're looking for, then why would they hire you? Think about it that way. So you have the answers to the test. The answers to the test is the job description. What is it about that job description that you need to hammer home so that hiring manager, that HR person, that recruiter is going to say, yeah, this is the right person for this position.
Love it.
Cool. All right. I love that one. That's one that, guys, that's like a bonus one. Like a lot of times we don't talk about that. This is like cutting edge, like top shelf kind of stuff. So I hope you guys are paying close attention. So let's go to number 5. I think we're on.
Yeah, this is believing that the initial call is an information session. And I'll tell you guys, I just had a good friend of mine that didn't get moved forward in an interview because of this. And when you get experience, Tom said, I did this for 20 years. You get a little bit, I'm just going to check this one out. Like, I'll take a call with that company. Think about that before you agree to doing that and whether or not you really are interested in that company enough to do your research for the initial interview. Because, if you don't, you're wasting your own time and you're wasting the hiring manager's time, and you never know who's talking to who in the industry. So you'd be surprised if, 5 years later, when you're looking and you really want to be a part of that company, they're going to look back and they're going to remember people talk and they're like, well, yeah, they showed up to this interview and they hadn't even like looked at our website. They didn't know what the products were. They didn't know what the disease state was. They asked me questions that they could literally go to www.whateverthecompanyis.com and find, like, that's our pipeline. So it doesn't take a lot of time. Like, I'm talking, if you spend an hour, if you can't spend an hour prepping for that, like for an interview, then you probably shouldn't take it. We all have an hour. I guarantee the week before your interview, you probably watch Netflix. So I sound like I'm, almost lecturing here, but it's so important. Just, it's your reputation out there. So even if you're super experienced, I get it, you're busy, but so are the people on the other side, and it does trail with you. So I think just the basic information, go to the website, do that. You might not get asked anything about it, and that's okay, but you're still going to go in with more knowledge and know like if this is somewhere you would want to work. And I've got a bonus for this one. So the bonus part here is the person that gets on with the hiring manager and actually makes an excuse and says, I didn't have time to check this out, but I thought I'd take this call. Like, it just, like, think about how that looks to the other person. You're essentially, it'd be like going into the KOL and being like, hey, I didn't have time to prepare today, but like, I'm glad to see you. Like, just don't do it. Then don't take the interview. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Tom?
No, I totally agree. And you guys have to understand that there's an expectation from the other side that you are coming to that interview prepared, that you're coming there knowing about the opportunity that you're interviewing with. Otherwise, if you don't know about it, you don't know about the company, why are you there? Now, and Sarah, you said that, I think this one is the mistake is to not believe the initial call is an information session.
Information session.
Yeah, it's not an information gathering session. You are going to learn and you're going to get information, but the intention is not that call is for you to gather information. You need to gather information beforehand so that you can have questions and you can learn more about whether or not that opportunity is going to be for you, and whether or not you're a good fit for the company, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, the expectation from the company is that you're coming in prepared. They're going to ask you, guys, I guarantee it, that one of the first questions they're going to ask is, why do you want to work for our company? What do you know about our company? And I talk about this all the time, but a lot of times they ask that question not to really see what the answer is, but just to see that you actually did the homework.
That's so true.
So as long as you could check the box and say, well, as a matter of fact, I spent quite some time reviewing your website and I learned this and I learned that. And I can't tell you how excited I am about this opportunity. I think it's a great company. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And you go into it, they're going to say, wow, okay, this person did their homework, and that's what they want to see. So that's a really good one, Sarah. I love that. So what's next? All
right. If you're driving or like working out, this one, you're going to like just watch the road, because you're gonna, I would never do that, but you would be surprised. So number 6 is lie, exaggerate, or change dates. And I'll be specific here, and I'll give you an example that just happened last month. I had a candidate that was laid off, not working at the company anymore. Had explained that to me, and we knew when he was done. He got on his initial interview and he said he was still employed at that organization. It makes both of us look really bad. And I'm shocked in the last year at how many times this type of thing happens. I think people aren't confident. And if you've been laid off, it's fine. Like we totally, that people understand, they expect, they just want to know the dates. They want to know, like, when is your final date? When is, if you have a severance, when is that up? Like those specific things, but don't ever like fudge any of that, because it comes back and it never looks good. And then you end up trying to explain, and it just doesn't make sense. And I'll throw out another example too, because I actually had someone provide this and say that, they changed their job title to like a medical science liaison at a previous company because, it's so difficult and they can't show experience, and they never got caught. You know what? If you did get caught, like, you're going to be blacklisted. So just be careful. Like, don't ever lie. It always comes back to hurt you. And just be really careful about your dates. Transparency is always the best.
Transparency is key, folks. I totally agree. And I know that there's always some gray area, and sometimes you're struggling with, how do I position myself properly? Well, let me just add one other thing. If there is gray area and you're really not sure and you're looking for advice, ask a recruiter, ask someone like Sarah, ask someone like me, and all my other competitors that are out there, and friends and colleagues that are recruiters. I know we all will probably give similar, if not same, advice on how to handle this stuff. And sometimes when you're in the situation, you're a little too close to the forest to see the trees. So you need somebody to help you and somebody to tell you what to do. But we don't want to see you lose on a technicality. And that's what happens when you get caught exaggerating. And I don't want to use the word lie, because I don't want to insinuate that everybody's a liar out there. But some people flat out do lie. Some people exaggerate. Some people stretch things a little bit. And you just need to be careful. So this is a good one, and it can be a showstopper. It could be one of those things that when it comes up and when the company finds out, it's over. You're done. There's no explanation. It's done. So just guys, really be careful on this one for sure. So what's the next one?
Yeah. Number 7 is giving the wrong reason for looking for new roles. And, we just said transparency is wonderful, but honesty, sometimes if you can go a little bit too far. And I get a lot of like, I'm really burnt out, or I'm bored in my current role, or I'm unfulfilled. If you go into a hiring manager with those reasons for seeking a new role, the hiring manager doesn't really care how you feel in your current role. They want to know what you're bringing to them next. So it's, I just like to say, like, companies it's not that they don't care about you, but they're not looking like, well, what are you going to get out of this? They're looking for what you can do for them. So really, like, bringing you, out of your boredom isn't their, on their to-do list. So I really think you already talked about it, Tom, like you're coming in with why you're a good fit for the role, and not necessarily why you're looking to make the change because you're bored or unfulfilled, or especially that burnt out. And I get it. Like, I totally understand, especially those of you that are like healthcare workers, like burnout is real. Or if you're, at an organization where you feel burnt out, that I get it, but it's just not something we want to bring to the interview.
This is a big one, guys. Sarah, you hit the nail on the head with this one. There's so much to unpack here. First and foremost, you have to think about what the other person, like the perspective of the hiring manager. So one of the things that hiring managers think is this person running from something, or are they running to something? You want them to think that you're running to something, not from something. So a common mistake is really overemphasizing why you're looking to leave a certain place, or being overly negative about why you want to leave, or using negative language. So Sarah, you hit the nail on the head when people use terms like I'm burnt out, or I'm unfulfilled, or whatever. What's happening is you're setting a negative tone, and you're putting the conversation into this negative space. And now what happens is that hiring manager is going to start to think, well, this person's a Debbie Downer a little bit, and I don't know if I want someone like that on my team. Here's the other thing you have to keep in mind. They're going to think that if you're unfulfilled now, or if you're burnt out now, what makes anyone think that you're not going to be burnt out 6 months from now, or unfulfilled 6 months from now if they hire you? You're actually telling them what to think about you for the future. So go back to what we were saying before about the piece about excitement, enthusiasm, and telling them why you're a good fit for the job, what your value proposition is, why you would be such a good asset to the organization, and how excited you are about it. And then when it comes to answering the question of, well, why are you looking to leave? Well, you can't ignore it. You have to give a reason. And quite often, sometimes that reason is, well, I'm really looking to grow in my career, and I'm looking to advance. So I'm considering opportunities elsewhere to see if there's anything out there that might be a better fit for me and for my future. It's not really saying anything negative about the company. No. It's not saying anything negative about you. It's all positive. It's all forward thinking. So I don't want to go too much into that, but it is a big one. So what do we have next, Sarah?
You made the transition to the next one because you're talking about growing. So the next one is actually talking too much about ambition. So there is a sweet spot there. And I've had candidates, especially recently, that they've got big goals. And, Tom and I love big goals. But when it's in the interview process and you're talking about where you want to be in like 4 or 5 years, and it's a couple levels ahead of the job that you're interviewing for, sometimes it can really hurt you. And the hiring manager can think, they don't really want to be in this role. They're just using it as a stepping stone. So I think we really have to be careful about that. And it's okay to share, like, my long-term goal is whatever it is, but really after that, focus on how you're going to bring your skills and grow in the role that you're interviewing for. And I'll say, especially like those stepping stone roles, Sometimes we've had a lot of them, Tom, where they'll specifically, the hiring manager, like for a meta info role, will say, don't bring me a candidate that just wants to use this as a bridge. Like they know people are using it as a bridge. But if you just flat out say like, well, I want to be a MSL, but like, I'm just going to do this to get there. Like that's just not a good, it doesn't mean anything to the hiring manager. Sure, they want great things for you, but too much ambition during the interview process can harm you a little bit.
Again, and you bring up a really good point, because how many times have we heard from hiring managers like, well, the person's not going to be happy in this role.
Yes.
That's what happens. If you overshoot the mark, and if you're too ambitious, they're going to think, well, they're not really interviewing for this role. They're interviewing for their next role, or they're telling me that what they want next, which we're not sure we can provide for them. Maybe not now, maybe not ever. So I think it's good to be ambitious. Sarah and I are not saying you should be ambitious, but interview for the role that's in front of you. If they ask you what your future ambitions, what your future outlook is, you can certainly share that with them, but just be careful not to overshoot the mark, because it could come back to bite you. So, okay, what are we on, number 9?
We're going to number 9. So number 9, we could do an entire podcast on this, especially like I said, I never interviewed in a virtual environment, but really focusing on like what are you giving off in a virtual world, I think will help you tremendously. So just a couple of things here, just giving off the wrong verbal, like non-verbal cues is what the thing is, like the mistake that people make. But a couple easy fixes, like focus on your posture, make sure that you're looking at the camera, make sure, we already talked about the background, show your hands, practice, like actually set it up so that you can see like, where is my laptop? How do I look on here? And then make sure you're not sitting too close or too far from the camera, because that's another one that can just be a little awkward. Like if you were in person, you wouldn't sit that close to the person. So when you're like in camera, it can actually have that same type of like vibe where you're just like the person's a little too close or a little bit too far and seems aloof. So like try to think about those kind of things as you go into the virtual. But again, we could do a whole podcast on just that topic.
We should, because there's so much really good research on this. And guys, just so you know, and you've probably heard this before, but 93% of communication is nonverbal. Think about that. 93% of communication is nonverbal. So when you're in a virtual interview, or if you're back in a live interview, you just want to make sure to be mindful about your nonverbal cues. When someone's speaking, are you nodding your head? Are you showing that you're paying attention? You're creating eye contact. Eye contact's really, really important. You have to make sure that you're maintaining eye contact with the people that you're speaking to, because it creates trust and it shows your interest. It shows that you're listening. So if you have shifty eyes and if you're fidgeting, it's going to give a nervous signal. It's going to give a signal of the lack of interest, and there's a lack of confidence. So just that piece alone is really important. And one last thing I want to add, Sarah mentioned showing your hands, which is so funny because right now I'm actually showing my hands because I talk with my hands. But showing your hands is actually a way to establish trust. When people can't see your hands, they're not sure what your intentions are. It goes back to like the old days of like cavemen that were wondering if there was somebody coming at them with a rock or a spear. So keep that in mind. We can do this. Sarah, you got to come back. We got to do this a whole podcast on nonverbal communication. So let's move to number 10.
Yeah, 10, we already hit on a little bit, but it's important enough to bring it up as its own. And it's bringing negativity or drama from a different role. And this one's short and sweet, Tom. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's your boss. It doesn't matter if it was your territory, your company, the situation. It doesn't matter. There's always avoid going negative. And a lot of that you just don't need to bring up, or you can put a positive spin on it. But I'll leave it at that.
No, you're right. We don't have to go into too much detail on this one, but guys, just try to focus on your language. What are the terms and phrases that you're using throughout the interview? Is it a positive tone? Or are you giving off this negative downward vibe that is just going to make the person, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, feel that something is off? So just keep that in mind as you prepare for and as you're conducting the interview. Number 11,
This one is using I or we too much. And for the women out there, women tend to use we because we want to give other people credit. We want to be team players. But you really have to make a conscious effort to use a mix of both. And the best way to do this is as you go through, some of your specific examples, if there's something where you worked as a team, use we, but then the actual the things that you did, you need to use I. So you just make a conscious effort. You might even want to put a post-it note up there, like during your interview, to remind yourself, because this is one I was pretty bad at, to be honest. I would go to we, and they want to hear you say I too, because otherwise it's kind of like, well, did they, are they more just a follower? Are they more just, a person that, I might need someone to step it up. So you want to be a mix.
That's a good one, Sarah. I mean, this is something that people don't talk about this a lot, but it's a really important one. So guys, make a note of this and practice as you're talking to others and as you're, doing your day-to-day interactions, even with your own team. Just really be cognizant of how often you do this. But I like the sticky note idea too. And what's number 12?
Yeah, it's avoiding following up. And I think obviously the thank you to who you spoke, anyone that interviewed you, that goes without saying. But I'm going to take this a step further because I feel like there's a lot of people out there doing informational interviews. There's people that maybe came to your presentation. And I know it's a lot of work, but sending those people a quick note, if someone took the time to do an informational interview with you and help get you, a screening, you need to acknowledge that and thank them. I really think there's a lot of giving out there, and on the other end, there's not a lot of people that are, acknowledging that. And remember that the people that are giving you your time, they're not paid for that. They're doing that. There's a lot of MSLs that are out there helping you right now, that if you're not following up and thanking them, I think you're really not shining as well as you could. So obviously the thank you, but I'm going to just take it a step further, that you need to be acknowledging the other people along the way that are helping you.
1,000%. Again, this is another controllable, guys. I think that it's a mistake if you don't do this and do it in a timely fashion. Follow up is really, really important, and they're going to be looking for it. Folks on the other side are going to be looking to see that you sent thank you notes, looking to see that you followed up. Again, this goes back to whether or not you're really truly interested in the opportunity. So are we at number 13?
Yeah, we're at number 13.
Wow.
This is it.
All right.
Okay, so 13 is something that we all know, but somehow it slips in there, and it's about asking about salary, benefits, vacation, especially in those initial interviews. And I know there's so much out there online and so many good resources about advocating for yourself and getting the maximum salary that you can. I get it, you should. But that initial conversation, or until you get to the right spot, it's not the time. And you can lose because of that. Whatever that one friend, almost everybody that I work with has that one friend that told them, make sure who you're getting advice from as far as, when to bring up certain questions and what to ask for. Because that one friend probably doesn't work at the company that you're interviewing for and has a completely different situation. So just really, as far as salary, benefits, vacation time, trip that you want to take, talk to your recruiter. Don't bring that up in the interview setting.
Such a good one, because this could be a deal breaker, guys. And there's going to come a time when you're going to talk about all this stuff, but just be careful how you handle the first date is my advice. Yes. You don't want to disclose too much or ask too many questions that are what we would call kind of stepping over the line for the first interview and the initial phases of the interview. As things go further, you're going to have plenty of time to get into this, whether it's through a recruiter like us that you're working through or somebody on the HR side. But if you're on a phone screen with a hiring manager and you start talking about salary and vacations and benefits and stuff like that, first of all, it really shows lack of professionalism. And those aren't the questions that you need to know on that first interview. Be prepared with a really good list of questions that are going to help you decide whether or not you want to pursue the opportunity for what it is as far as roles, responsibilities, and what it's going to do for your career versus how much you're going to get paid. You'll get there, and hopefully that'll all work out, but you need to get those questions the most important questions answered first. So guys, I learned a lot. I mean, Sarah's so good. I mean, this is such really, really good stuff. And I want to say that it's practical, it's current, it's stuff that she has seen firsthand. So Sarah, any final thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know how competitive things are in today's market. So obviously we would just want to help you so that you could show up at every phase of the interview, you know, in the best possible light. So.
Well, you're the best. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you all for your support. If you like this, please share it with others and definitely listen to it before your next interview. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss episodes in the future, and feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.